So David, you talked about a number of deployments around the world and X number of subscribers. Walk me through what that really means and where they are and what stage of deployment.
Carriers are in varying stages of production deployments, ranging from very simple appliance deployments where they may take a single virtual function, try it out in market and make it work for them, all the way up to carriers who've been in this now for a couple of years, have an advanced set of cloud technologies they've deployed into their core network, either in the mobile core or out towards the enterprise edge, and are potentially rolling those solutions out as they achieve success through more than one opco in some cases. So we're definitely at the stage now where it's becoming mainstreamed, and carriers are having repeated successes with some of these common solutions.
Can you talk a little bit about the specific catalyst that caused the carrier to go ahead and make a decision, spend the money, and invest in the technology?
So carriers in many markets are experiencing a lot of margin compression in their business, and they're at the same time needing to bring services to market at a much faster and more flexible rate than they used to. And when you see a carrier market where that is true and those carriers had not completed their 4G build-outs, often they will look at their mobile core and say, you know, why don't I just move that into NFV, build out my IMS solution, my voice over LTE, my virtual evolved packet core on a virtual platform and be that much faster and more agile in market. And so that's been the catalyst for many of the carriers. We're also seeing a lot of experimentation with the virtual EPC use case out on the edge of the network towards the enterprise-facing side, but not as many production deployments. The mobile core seems to be a sweet spot for many of the mobile operators.
And for those who may not know the role of VMware in that virtualized solution, can you talk about where you play and what specifically you're doing at the core and then what you expect to be doing at the edge?
Sure. So carriers are new to the cloud in their core networks, but they're very familiar with VMware from their IT sides of their business. We're a known, very trusted brand, and one of the big questions that carriers have had in going into NFV is, can I take the stability and the trustworthiness of VMware from the IT side and have that same level of trust on the production side in my core network? And that's what they've really discovered, is that that is true. Our experience on the enterprise side is proving to be incredibly valuable to them as they build out cloud infrastructure. So VMware's responsibility is really the same in the core network as we are on the enterprise IT side, a trusted partner that they can use to deploy cloud platforms to run business and mission critical applications that they need in order to achieve the business value objectives that they have in that environment.
Carriers have always been held to a higher standard. 5 nines is kind of a telco term, whereas in the web it was hyperscale. Can you maybe point out some of the differences between, you've been a trusted source for 15 years, but compare and contrast some of the differences between an enterprise deployment versus a telco deployment?
Yeah, that's a very good point. High availability is an objective that one achieves in a cloud platform a little bit differently than in a traditional network architecture. One takes a series of components in a cloud platform. Each individual component might only have 3 nines of availability, but by creating redundancy in each of those components, collectively that cloud platform can easily achieve 5 nines of availability. In fact, we have platforms in production now in the core network for over 2 to 3 years that have never gone down. And so the goal here is really to take best practices that work in terms of cloud economics, but also cloud architecture, and apply them to the problem of achieving high availability, resiliency, fast failover, fast recovery, and all of those things are very doable with commodity components and basic cloud platforms, but you have to design for the redundancy in order to achieve that.
And in this new era of telco cloud and virtualization, there's some new things, in my opinion, the whole open source movement, open cloud compute, the Linux and that sort of thing. How has that changed the way you approach your solution?
So VMware has a long history in the space, and one of the benefits of having been a pioneer in the cloud space and having followed it all the way through is that we understand how the use of cloud has evolved over time. And one of the interesting things about NFV that's important, very important for carriers to keep in mind, is the evolution that's underway in the application architectures for the VNFs that are being placed on these platforms. In the first year or two when NFV was in its formative stages, most of these applications were direct ports from physical. they then had certain expectations of their container environment, if you will, based on what they experienced when they were running on physical, and you have to mimic that environment in order for them to be successful. So we have cloud platform managers that provide very high availability for that purpose. But then the next generation of applications that were more OpenStack oriented start appearing on the market. And then in a couple of years, we're going to see that superseded by containers, Docker, that sort of thing, microservices. It's an ever evolving and maturing space. And the important thing that carriers need to understand is it's not that you pick one platform and then stay with it forever. It's that you need a platform that can evolve with the application architectures that it's providing support for. So for that reason, we're very unique in the industry right now with our vCloud NFV platform in supporting multiple virtual infrastructure managers, multiple VIMs. We have a traditional VIM which provides a very high grade availability that a traditional NFV application requires. We support completely OpenStack. We have an integrated OpenStack in the architecture as well as supporting other distributions like Mirantis or Canonical. And we have VMware integrated containers which will be released in the fall of this year and incorporated into the architecture as that movement starts to gain speed and carriers start to experiment with containers as well.
I'd like to touch on maybe three quick things. Service level agreement, okay? Virtual CPE and Internet of Things. So whichever order you want to take those, service level agreement, Internet of Things,
well,
and
let's take them in that order then.
Okay.
So the interesting thing about SLAs, and this is a very important thing to focus on, is in an environment where the carrier has chosen to achieve the benefits of NFV by running their own cloud, as opposed to giving that responsibility over to a sole vendor, they then actually have an SLA that they owe their vendors from that cloud. Then the vendors owe a second SLA for each of those VNFs back to them. And that is a process the carriers have to become comfortable with. And we've seen that evolve over time. There are certain carriers who have been willing to take that whole responsibility, other carriers that would like an extended support contract from one or more of the vendors in their architecture. We've also seen them look to third parties to provide those types of contracts. But ultimately, that agreement needs to be at a 5 nines level so that the applications running on that platform can have the same degree of resilience and expectation of support that they provide then back to that carrier.
All right, so how about Internet of Things? What role is VMware playing in enabling IoT?
So VMware is in a very unique position with respect to IoT in that through our AirWatch assets, and I think many people have seen many of the AirWatch presentations at the event this week, we control agents on millions and millions of internet-based devices. And by linking the agents within AirWatch up to overlay networking technologies like our NSX, or further back into the network to NFV-based clouds, one can create end-to-end architectural solutions with our products that provide for not just machine-to-machine based solutions, but also full Internet of Things capabilities. That said, we do believe IoT is in its infancy, and that certain key things, such as security, really need to be solved before we're going to see the explosion of adoption that we hope to see in the next 4 to 5 years. We are intending to be a very big part of that,
right.
And one of the key things that AirWatch provides is very, very highly secure endpoint management.
Well, speaking of endpoint, yes, AirWatch on the consumer side, device side. Let's move on to virtual CP, where carriers provide service to an enterprise customer. Could be one location, could be thousands of locations.
Right.
And then we'll come back to the service level agreement.
Okay.
But so virtual CPs, is it going to happen this year? Is it actively going on? And what role does
I think there's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem with virtual CPE in that you may get all dressed up to the party and still not be able to go if you don't know how to sell the services that you have virtualized and offered. Network as a service is a little bit like SaaS was in its infancy, in that you have a market you know is there, but you're not quite sure how to deliver the value into that market, how to price that solution, how to
they call
support
those
that
application
solution.
service providers. Remember that term?
That's right, back in the day, right? So if a carrier is struggling now to deliver the basic functionality and now has to reinvent it as itself as an application service provider, you can kind of understand the challenges that we're having in seeing adoption there. Not for lack of some very, very good science projects and other types of pilots that are going on in this space, but they technically may solve the problem but not really solve it from a go-to-market and a business point of view. So VMware does have a role to play in this that's slightly unique because we do own the enterprise IT infrastructure from a cloud perspective. And one of the things that we'll be exploring this year is, are there ways to surface network capabilities on the NFV side of a service provider's infrastructure, and then link through and deliver those capabilities through the portals and the ITSM solutions that we provide on the enterprise side.
Dave, thanks for your time.
A pleasure, thank you very much.